to the Henderson family and to the family members of Mr. Stevens for being here today. As the state stated, this is the courtroom where Mr. Henderson's 3 trials would have been held, and the same courtroom where he was convicted and sentenced all 3 times.
It's a lot to take in. When I walked through those doors, I felt the same jolt of energy that I could imagine my great-grandfather felt when he was here fighting for his life. When he sat down in the defendant's chair and made sure he had tried clear his name, I can only imagine what he felt.
In 1948, a young man was murdered in Carroll County, and Clarence Henderson was accused of such crime. After 3 separate jury trials, where Mr. Henderson was convicted of murder and sentenced to life, the highest court of our state heard Mr. Henderson's appeals. In 3 separate opinions, the Georgia Supreme Court overturned the convictions of Mr. Henderson as the evidence offered simply did not rise to the rule required by law to support such convictions, and the state failed to carry the burden of proof necessary to convict Mr. Henderson beyond a reasonable doubt. After the 3rd conviction was overturned, Mr. Henderson was released and his case was placed on the dead docket. While Mr. Henderson lived his life as a free man after that point, he lived under the shadow of the pending murder charges remaining against him. The district attorney's office decision to move this court to remove the case from the dead docket and enter a null pros is an example of the office fulfilling its mission. This is a sad case that affected many families. The Henderson family and Mr. Stevens' family have all agreed that this affected their families and that it had lasting impact.
We think about what happened that night. We've read these transcripts that are 70 and 80 years old, and regardless of who the assailant was on that evening, it's undisputed that Buddy's actions were heroic. And so we have a great sense of pride in sort of reading that story and seeing that he put his life on the line and ultimately gave his life to save another. And we hang on to that. I was myself a criminal defense attorney for about 7 years, and familiar with the justice system and familiar with the family impact that an arrest has, certainly a conviction, but in this case, multiple convictions. As the family described, it is something that has just been a cloud over their family for multiple generations. And that's real pain. And that loss and that hole is just as real as the loss of Buddy's life.
I'm Clarence Henderson's daughter, the only living child he have. Everything happened before I was born, but thankful for Mr. Jordan. He was good enough to look into my father's case and to have this day, and I thank him for him. That's all.
Today is not vindication, it is closure for our family, but it will never be vindication because we can never get back what our family has lost. And today is closure for us, but it definitely needs to be pointed out there were some things done that shouldn't have been done. I asked about the prosecutor that prosecuted my grandfather that many times, and his family feels as if that man was a great man. My family don't have that same feeling about their grandfather and my great-grandfather and their father because he was angry because of something that a system did to him. So yes, I'm happy for closure, but this is not vindication. This is not justice. Justice was due then. This is just closure.
The state routinely files motions to null pros cases where there is not sufficient evidence to carry its burden of proof, and the court routinely grants such motions. This case is a prime example when such a motion should be granted. It is especially an example where we have the Supreme Court of Georgia giving 3 different opinions to the lack of evidence that existed on 3 separate trials for any conviction of Clarence Henderson. After 73 years of pending charges against Mr. Henderson, I am granting the state's motion to remove the case from the dead docket, and I am signing an order to dismiss the charges against Mr. Henderson. And in closing, I will say that although the wheels of justice can often turn slow, which the Henderson family has felt, the long arc of the moral universe bends towards justice, and I believe that happens today in signing this order. Thank you.
I know he wanted to hear not guilty, not guilty, not guilty, but he didn't. But today I had a chance to hear that, and it brought my heart to a place that I never felt before. And it jolted chills down my spine. So I'm very thankful for the courthouse that was presiding over this case that was able to hear this on today, that allows us a chance to speak.